I remember it like it was yesterday. The mission on the spacecraft, Endeavour, happened a few months ago, but I can't shake the feeling of dread it left behind. I was 35, a research scientist in astrobiology. I longed to explore the unknown, despite not being very experienced in space missions. The thrill of potential extraterrestrial life consumed me. We flew smoothly, surrounded by screens showing that strange object beyond Mars. Everything felt fine until our communication systems picked up a signal. It was strange, almost mocking us with whispers mixed in static. I thought it might be interference. The crew seemed uneasy, but I could sense something deeper, lurking just outside our understanding. As we approached the object, tension thickened in the air. I couldn't help but notice our discussions grew more frantic. The descent made my stomach twist with unease. We landed without a hitch, but as I stepped out onto that alien surface, chills crept down my spine. The sight of strange symbols etched into the ground left me feeling like I had walked into a warning sign. I traced one with my finger. It felt uncomfortably cold. The days wore on, but something changed. Crew members started acting odd. I heard whispers in the control room, but when I turned to look, no one would meet my eyes. Equipment malfunctioned as if some unseen force toyed with us. And those nightmares, they were haunting. I always awoke in complete darkness, convinced I heard something scuttling in the hallway. Then one day, it happened. One of our crew saw something at the edge of our campsite, a shape hiding in the shadows. I insisted on going with a few others to check it out, desperate to prove there was nothing to fear. My heart raced as we moved toward the shadows. As we stepped closer, I started to wish I hadn't suggested it. There he stood, partially hidden. I asked if he was okay, but he just pointed toward a dark crater nearby. My body froze. Every instinct told me to run, but my feet felt glued to the ground as fear wrapped around me like a heavy blanket. Then I noticed it. A glint in the darkness, something pointed right at us. Panic surged through me. I turned to call for the others, but the words vanished in my throat. It felt like the air thickened around me, like we were trapped in a dream. Was it just a trick of the light, or was it alive? A feeling crawled through me, maybe we weren't the first ones to find this object. The weight of the thought tightened my chest. I exchanged looks with my crew, and we all understood. We were no longer alone. The whispers grew louder, creeping into my thoughts. "That isn't right," someone muttered. Suddenly, I felt as if eyes were watching us from that shadow. The ground shifted, and my fear sank deeper. We had to leave. I ran back toward the craft, heart pounding, uncertainty clawing at my mind. What had we awakened? The moment I reached the spacecraft, I nearly collapsed against its cold metal. My breaths came in quick gasps. I looked back toward the shadows, expecting to see something following us, but the darkness remained still. We weren't safe, not yet. The crew was already inside, faces pale and drawn. I could see them trying to piece together what we just witnessed. "Did you see it?" one of them asked, voice trembling. I nodded, but I couldn't find the words to explain the dread that settled in my gut. There was a tension in the air, thick like fog. I glanced at the monitors. Everything appeared normal, but something felt off. The communication systems buzzed with intermittent static, the whispers creeping back into my mind. I heard them again, words laced with urgency but indecipherable. I rubbed my temples, trying to shake them away. "Let us regroup, everyone," I said, attempting to project authority. "We need to assess the situation and figure out our next steps." Though I was shaking, I forced my voice to sound steady. I gathered the team in the cramped control room, hovering over the screens filled with data on that strange object. Symbols danced on the screen like taunts, unsettling me even more. "Some of us need to go back out into the field," I stated firmly. I hated the arrangement, but the need for answers outweighed my fear. We can't let whatever it is out there control our mission. A tense silence followed, and I could sense the reluctance in the room. Finally, one of my colleagues, Mina, spoke up. What if we make it worse? What if we provoke it? Her eyes were wide with fear. I understood, but we didn't have a choice. We were scientists, after all. The allure of discovery was intoxicating, even if it now felt suffocating. Just then, alarms started blaring, and the monitors flickered wildly. No! I shouted, jumping back. What now? The numbers were fluctuating, readings going haywire. Then, with a crackle, the static opened like an ominous portal, voices spilling through once again louder, clearer. My heart raced at the chilling realization. They were speaking in a language I couldn't understand, yet it felt deeply familiar. That's when I saw it again, a dark mass moving outside the ship's viewport. My skin prickled as icy fingers of a primal fear clawed at my insides. I rushed to the window. My heart stopped. There was something out there, something more than a shadow. It was towering, misshapen, and as it edged toward us, the whispers intensified, merging with the wails of the alarm. "Mina, get the camera!" I yelled, urgency breaking through my fear. She scrambled for the equipment, and I fumbled with the controls, attempting to zoom in on the entity. But the input lagged like it was resisting our observation. Finally, the screen focused, and I gasped. It was a figure, distorted, yet unmistakably humanoid. A flick of light caught my eye, revealing its features shrouded in darkness, eyes reflecting an unholy glow. "It won't leave us alone," I breathed. Desperation surged through me. "We have to get back to Earth now." But as I turned from the viewport, something crashed against the hull, rattling the spacecraft. And then, everything went dark. I woke to the sound of beeping. My eyes fluttered open, and I found myself in the control room, sprawled on the floor. Panic flooded my chest as memories flooded back, the figure outside, the crash, the darkness. I pushed myself up. "Is everyone all right?" I scanned the room. Mina was beside me, her face pale but intact. A couple of crew members were groaning and shaking themselves awake. They looked disoriented. I noticed the alarms had stopped, but the monitors remained dark. "It didn't get in," Mina whispered, her voice trembling. I thought she trailed off, visibly trying to steady herself. I couldn't allow myself to feel relieved. "We need to reboot the systems," I said, taking charge. "Now." My hands shook as I maneuvered my way back to my station. I pressed buttons, waiting for the screens to flicker to life. As the systems powered up, I felt a chill creep back in. What if whatever happened out there wasn't over? The air felt thick again, almost suffocating. The monitors eventually hummed back to life, showing static and then the faint outlines of data readings, but nothing seemed normal. The sensors were still picking up fluctuations stronger than before. A spike in energy levels appeared on the screen. "Look!" I pointed to the monitor. "Something's still out there." Mina leaned forward, squinting at the data. "What do you think it is?" "Maybe it's still that figure," I said, dread settling over me again. It felt like something was lurking, just beyond the ship. Or, something worse. Before I could finish my thought, another crash reverberated through the hull. This one felt heavier, more deliberate. I jumped, heart racing. I couldn't shake the sensation that we weren't alone, not within the ship, nor in the vast emptiness outside. "Everyone stay alert," I commanded, my voice steadier now. "I want teams ready in case something goes wrong. We might have to move fast." As the crew scrambled to gather equipment, I felt a pull behind my mind, like a whisper trying to reach me again. It grew louder, blending with the echoes of my own thoughts. "Focus," I murmured under my breath. "Just focus." Suddenly, one of the monitors blared again. "We're detecting an anomaly," a voice from the control room announced, breaking my concentration. My pulse quickened as I turned back to the screen. It couldn't be. Was it showing the location of the figure? I leaned closer. The readings were intense, unlike anything I had encountered, energy waves oscillating in nonlinear patterns. This might not just be a creature. It could be a signal. Before I could process my own words, the energy reading surged again, peaking abruptly. The ship trembled beneath us, as if it was responding to whatever lurked outside. "Mina, get the scanning equipment ready," I shouted. "We need to analyze that anomaly." But before she could reply, there was a sudden shudder, and the lights dimmed, flickering like a dying star. My stomach dropped. The quiet fear in the room morphed into chaos as another series of crashes rattled the spacecraft. "We need to move," I yelled, my heart racing as I rushed to the door. Whatever presence lingered outside, it was not going to let us go easily. The door slid open with a hiss, and I stepped into the dimly lit hallway. The atmosphere weighed heavily, like a blanket wrapped too tightly around me. I glanced back at Mina, who had gathered a few crew members to follow. I could see the uncertainty on their faces, the fear mingling with adrenaline. "Stay close," I instructed, leading the way toward the nearest observation bay. We needed a vantage point, something to make sense of what was outside if the sensors were still picking it up. As we moved, the ship shuddered again, sending vibrations through the floor. Silence followed, thick and eerie. I could feel my pulse in my ears, a constant reminder of the danger looming over us. "What if it gets in?" I heard one of the crew whisper behind me. Their voice was shaky. I turned around and locked eyes with them. "We're not going to let that happen." "Just stay sharp," I said, trying to instill confidence, even as doubt gnawed at me. The last thing I wanted was to add more fear to the air around us. We reached the observation bay. I flicked on the emergency lights, the small bulbs casting a dull glow across the room. The massive viewports showed nothing but the vast darkness of space, punctuated by the distant twinkle of stars. Yet I felt the prickling awareness that something was close. "Can anyone see anything?" I asked, scanning the port as I pored over the controls. "Mina, I need you on sensors. Use those connections we fixed last week." "Yes, I'm on it," she replied, her voice steadier than before. As Mina accessed the sensors, I kept watching outside. My breath caught as a flash of something caught my eye. Just beyond the ship, a shape flickered in and out of view, shimmering like a mirage. It was twisted and jagged, almost organic in form. "There. Did you see that?" I pointed eagerly, my heart racing. "Interesting," Mina muttered. She focused on the readings as the object's energy signature flared in response to our attention. "It's fluctuating, almost like a heartbeat. I've never seen anything like it." "What do you mean?" I turned toward her, adrenaline fueling my curiosity. "Is it alive?" "I can't say for sure, but it's definitely emitting some kind of energy field." "That's unusual." The ship trembled again, more violently this time. Alarms blared as the systems faltered. "What's happening?" I shouted, panic creeping back in. The display showed erratic spikes. "It's reacting to us," Mina cried. "We need to get back to control and recalibrate." "In a minute," I shouted back. "We have to understand what that thing is first." I couldn't look away from the shimmering object. Whatever it was, we were drawn to it against our better judgment. Then the lights flickered again, and everything went dark. "Get the emergency power," I shouted, but my words were swallowed by the chaotic rumble of metal. The ship bucked beneath us. I tried to regain my bearings, my eyes struggling to adjust to the darkness. All I could hear was the crew gasping, the sound echoed in my ears like a warning. Then, in the pitch black, I felt a presence behind me. "Someone just entered the bay," I whispered, dread settling in my stomach. Then I turned, but it was too late. Before I could react, a frigid gust swept through the room, and the viewports rattled violently. And that's when I saw it, a shape pressed against the glass, its features obscured. But I could feel its gaze, cold and unyielding. Everything inside me screamed to run, but I was frozen in place, staring back at what I hoped would never come through those doors. I took a shaky breath, trying to steady myself. The shape outside didn't move, but it felt like it was studying us. I could almost hear my own heartbeat thudding against the metal walls. "Mina!" I shouted, snapping out of my stunned silence. "Can you get the emergency lights back on?" "I'm trying," she called back. Fingers danced over controls, but the screens flickered erratically. "The system is locked. It's like it's occupying the mainframe." Another crew member interjected, fear thick in their voice. "Open the emergency backup." I barked, urgency seeping into my tone. As she struggled against the failing systems, I stole another glance at the viewports. The figure pressed closer, skin-like material shifting, barely adhering to whatever form it contained. It looked almost human, with limbs and features, but something was wrong, too elongated, too unnatural. "Mina, what do the sensors say?" I asked, dread curling in my stomach. She bit her lip, determination in her eyes. "Still picking up odd energy readings, but they're unstable." It's like the before she could finish, the ship jerked again, and the howl of warning sirens pierced the air. The viewports trembled as the ship's energy surged, louder now, resonating with our ship's systems. "This is not good," I shouted, scanning the room. The crew was anxious, whispered fears colliding. "Stay together. We need to move." Then, just as quickly as it began, the ship was still. The alarms fell silent, replaced by an unsettling calm. I exchanged a glance with Mina. "What just happened?" But before she could respond, the shadows in the bay shifted. The shape outside vanished with a snap, leaving only darkness. I stepped toward the viewport, squinting. Nothing. Just the vast emptiness of space. It felt wrong, like the ship itself was holding its breath. "Mina, run another diagnostic," I ordered, new panic surging. "We have to understand what just happened." "I'll do it now." She turned back toward the control panel, then, a creak echoed in the silence. My breath caught as I spun around. The door that led back to the hallway was ajar, swinging lazily. "We've got to secure that," I said, striding over, but freezing when I noticed what lay on the floor. A few small, glimmering shards had fallen from the doorframe, each piece seemingly echoing the characteristics of the pulsing object. "What the hell?" "I see it," Mina exclaimed. "Those fragments must be from that thing. It was open the door," I shouted, crossing the gap in 2 quick strides. I pushed against it, forcing it wider and peering out into the darkness. "Someone's out there. Don't go," one crew member cried, raising a hand in warning. But before I could respond, I heard a sound, a low rumble accompanied by a faint echo of whispers, as if the ship itself was trying to communicate. My heart raced as I took a cautious step outside, compelled to know more, but the moment I did, a shadow lurked behind me, shifting in the dim light. My blood ran cold. "Get back!" I yelled, but it was too late. The presence surged, and the door slammed shut behind me, sealing the room in darkness. What had I unleashed? I stood in the darkness, the cold metal now feeling like a cage. The whispers still echoed around me, growing louder, morphing into a cacophony. My heart raced as I stumbled backward, pressing against the solid door I'd just exited. The crew behind it was in chaos. "Mina!" I shouted, trying to drown out the noise. "Can you hear me?" There was no response, only the low hum of the ship's systems battling to stay alive. I took a deep breath and focused. I needed a plan. What if the shadows were still lurking? I peered into the blackness before me, squinting, imagining something moving just out of sight. "Push the door," I yelled, even though I knew they couldn't hear me. I pounded my fists on the steel, panic surging through me. Then, without warning, the air shifted. A chill swept through the corridor. I felt it, a presence inching closer. Squinting, I saw a distorted form manifesting at the end of the hall, shimmering like heat over pavement. I froze, rooted to the spot. "Who, what are you?" I whispered, though I knew it wouldn't answer. I could sense the thing this shape was mimicking the energy from those shards I'd seen earlier. It extended a long, thin arm toward me, and for a brief moment, I thought I saw a face in the shadows, a mixture of fabric and flesh. There was longing there, almost human in its desperation. It wanted something. "Mina, get the door open." My voice was strained with urgency. "Now." Suddenly, the whispers coalesced, forming words I couldn't make out. My breath came quicker, a frantic dance of fear and uncertainty. The shadow flickered, its shape wavering as though struggling against the light. "What do you want?" I shouted, hoping somehow it would understand, then it lunged. In a blink, it was upon me, wrapping around my body, pulling away all my rational thoughts. I gasped as a freezing sensation washed over me. I felt my energy being drained, confusion flooding my mind. Questions flew. What was this creature? Where had it come from? In a mad scramble for clarity, I twisted, attempting to break free. I shouted for the crew, for anyone to help me. The pressure was like a vice, and I felt warmth beginning to ebb from my body. At that moment, instinct kicked in. I kicked against the floor, pushing toward the door, my body screaming in protest. "Open! Please!" I cried out, desperate to rejoin my crew. And then somehow the door sprang open. Light flooded in from behind me, illuminating the shadow just as it tightened its grip. It recoiled, dissipating into the darkness, leaving only the faintest hint of its presence lingering in the air like smoke. "Mina!" I gasped, panting as I stumbled back into the control room. "We have to get out of here. It's coming for us." But as I turned to look at her, I felt a chill spin up my spine. The emergency lights flickered erratically, and the ship shuddered around us. "What is happening?" I asked, dread pooling in my gut. Before she could answer, alarms flared back to life. The whole ship shook violently. I squeezed my eyes shut, fear creeping into every corner of my mind, feeling like time was running out. When I opened my eyes again, the figure was back at the viewport, watching with intention. The reality settled in hard. We weren't alone, and we weren't safe. The alarm blared through the control room, a sharp reminder of our perilous situation. I turned to Mina, searching her face for signs that she could help us make sense of the chaos. Her expression mirrored my own dread as she typed frantically on the panel, but it seemed like they were losing control of the ship's systems. "We have to get to the engine room," she shouted over the noise. "If the core destabilizes, we'll be done for." With urgency gripping us, we darted towards the corridor. Each step felt heavy, my heart racing louder than the alarms. The shadow was still out there. I could almost feel its gaze tracking us. Every flicker of light cast long, ghostly shapes on the walls, heightening my terror. "Mina," I whispered, glancing back nervously. "What if it follows us?" She didn't respond. Her focus was on the path ahead, but I could see the tension framing her jaw. We reached the door to the engine room, and Mina hurriedly punched in the code. The door hissed open, revealing the dim glow of machinery within. The rhythmic thrum of engines filled the air, but I felt the unease settle deeper. Would it be enough? "Check the gauges," Mina ordered. She moved toward the main console, her fingers flying over the screen. My eyes wandered to the engine core. I remembered the Shadow's cold grip, and a shiver ran through me. Just then, a loud crash echoed behind us. I whipped around, my breath hitching. The corridor behind us was engulfed in darkness. The emergency lights struggled to pierce through that suffocating blackness. "It's here." I gasped. Mina didn't look up. Stay focused. She snapped, her voice sharp. We can't let it distract us. I could hardly concentrate. An unsettling energy filled the engine room, something tight and oppressive. I felt it creeping closer, wrapping itself around my instincts. My pulse raced as I focused on Mina, my heart screaming for her to finish whatever she was doing. Come on, come on. She urged. We don't have time. I took a step back, trying to survey the room. Then I caught movement from the corner of my eye. The shadow had seeped through the doorframe, stretching out toward us like a dark wave. My breath caught as I realized it was coming for Mina. Look out! I screamed, lunging forward. Mina flinched, surprised, and in that moment, her fingers slipped from the console. The controls sparked, and the room dimmed momentarily as systems rebooted. I tackled her, pushing her out of the shadow's reach. But the moment felt endless, and the darkness lashed out, wrapping around us both. Mina! A desperate tug pulled me under, blinding fear shooting through me. Just as the shadow tightened, I felt the surface of a familiar energy. The very shards from the shuttle had returned, glowing faintly around me, pulsing like a heartbeat. Hold on to it. I shouted, clenching my fist around the light. We can fight it. With a surge of strength, I yanked at the presence, feeling a little of that darkness recede. Mina staggered to her feet, eyes wide. What are you doing? We can't let it take us. I know. But it's connected to those shards. We need them. That S when I saw it, a face mirrored in the flickering lights, just for a second the urgency, the plea for help. It stirred something deep within. The shadow shrieked, pain echoing through the control room, causing the machinery to jerk wildly. If I didn't act now, we could be lost forever in its grip. I could feel the heat of the shadow's fury as it recoiled from the shards. The air crackled with tension, and I knew we had only seconds to act. We have to harness this energy. I shouted to Mina. It's our only chance. She snapped into action, her fingers darting over the console again. I can redirect the power from the core, she said, breathing heavily. But I need you to keep that shadow at bay. I nodded, my heart racing. I gathered the energy from the shards, pulling it towards me like a protective shield. The light intensified, illuminating the engine room, and for a moment, I could see the full horror of the figure before us, a glimpse of a misshapen entity, all shifting shadows and hollow eyes. Keep it steady. Mina yelled, her voice fighting against the noise of the alarms that I felt the darkness swirl around us in angry tendrils, probing and searching for a weakness. It's stronger than before. I shouted, panic creeping into my voice. I don't know how long I can hold this. Mina didn't falter. She tapped furiously at the controls, her eyes locked onto the screens. Just a little longer. I almost have it. Then something flickered across the screen, a series of distress signals from the ship's archives. Mina! Look! I called out, drawing her attention. What is that? Other ships have been here? She squinted at the readings, momentarily distracted. It's a pattern. Ships that went missing without a trace. The shadow lunged at us with renewed anger, the cold sweeping over my body like ice water. I struggled against its pull, the light from the shards flickering. This doesn't make sense. Why is it targeting us? I yelled, the words escaping like a frightened whisper. I don't know. Mina shouted, urgency spilling from her voice. But we're not the first to encounter it, and we might not be the last. In that instant, one of the screens blinked, showing a map of the surrounding space. A series of points lit up, marking ships that had ventured into the same sector as us. I traced the lights with my eyes, a chill creeping down my spine. If we don't escape, it will just keep hunting. The dark figure writhed and shrieked. Panic gripped my heart. Mina, hurry. I'm trying. She yelled back, but the console sparked with error messages. The system was failing. I could feel the grip of despair closing in. Think. I pleaded. There must be something, some way to seal it off. Then, as if answering my unspoken question, I recalled the technology one had studied during my training. A containment protocol. I shouted, overload the core. We can channel a shockwave through the systems, force it back. Mina's eyes widened with understanding as she rushed to follow my suggestion. You think it will work? It has to. I insisted, feeling the darkness clawing at my mind. Just do it. She nodded, our resolve merging into a single force as she adjusted commands. The core began to thrum ominously, a low hum filling the engine room as the energy surged. Now! I yelled, gathering all the light I could. With a final push, Mina triggered the overload, a brilliant flash erupting throughout the ship. The darkness shrieked, its form blurring and swirling as the shockwave pushed against it. It thrashed violently, but I felt the energy strengthening around us, pushing us back toward safety, but even as the shadow began to recede, a bone-deep sense of dread settled in my stomach. What had we awakened? The moment hung in suspended tension. I gripped Mina's shoulder, terror etched in my expression. We need to know what else is out there, I said, my voice shaking. This can't end now. Then everything went dark, and I feared we might have made a grave mistake. I blinked, disoriented in the sudden darkness. A low hum filled the air, but the alarms had stopped blaring. I could barely make out shapes around me, my heart pounding in my chest. Mina? I whispered, panic rising again. Are you okay? I'm here, she replied, her voice shaky but still strong. I think we did it. But the power is down. We're offline. What about the shadow? I asked, dread curling around my gut like a snake. Is it gone? I don't know, she said, her voice wavering. The sensors are dead. Everything's shut down. I forced myself to breathe deeply. We need to get the systems back up. If that thing comes back before I could finish, a flicker of light broke through the darkness. It was weak and erratic, like a dying star. Mina and I rushed toward it, following the faint glow. As we turned the corner, we stumbled into a small control room, the walls lined with blinking panels. Only a few emergency lights were still functioning. I looked around, hoping to find something, anything, that could help us recover. Mina grabbed a panel. This one seems to have a backup, she said, frantically pressing buttons. If I can just get it to reboot. A sound echoed from deeper within the ship, a scratching noise that made me freeze. My heart raced as fear clawed at me again. Did you hear that? I asked, my voice low. She nodded, eyes wide. It's probably just the ship settling. No, it's something else, I insisted. We need to move. Now. We backed toward the door, keeping our eyes on the darkened corridor. I wondered if we had really forced the shadow away or unleashed something worse. Suddenly, the emergency lights flickered once more and illuminated a small figure hunched in the shadows. My breath caught in my throat. It looked human. Mina. I gasped, pointing. Someone's there. The figure straightened, revealing a gaunt face and sunken eyes, as if it had been trapped in the dark for far too long. Help me, it croaked, voice raspy and weak. What happened to you? Mina asked, taking a cautious step forward. But before the figure could answer, a loud crash resonated from the engine room. The walls shuddered, and we felt the disorienting force of the ship's trembling. I shoved Mina back into the hall, adrenaline coursing through me. It's coming! I yelled. We had mere seconds to decide. As I hesitated, the figure's hollow stare locked onto mine. It's not safe here. You must leave before it awakens. The lights flickered again, the shadows stretching and swirling in ways that felt alive. What else is down here? I shouted, panic bleeding into my words. What did you find? The figure faltered, fingers clutching its head as if in pain. We thought we could explore. We were wrong. There was no time left. The crash sounded closer, an ominous promise of chaos. Mina, we need to go. I shouted, capturing her attention. We can't stay. In that moment, the urgency flared. We bolted through the corridor, the figure's cry fading behind us. But I couldn't shake what it had said. Something was stirring, and we might not have been the only ones awakened. As we reached the exit, I turned back, feeling a tear in my heart. We can't leave them, I murmured. But there was no time for hesitation. The shadow could return, and we had to escape. Outside, the cold air struck me, the void stretching endlessly. I turned to Mina, my breath coming in quick bursts. What do we do now? Then I heard it, a low, echoing whisper snaking through the air, carrying with it an ancient hunger that beckoned us back to the depths. And I realized, whatever lay ahead, the real danger had just begun. I stumbled out of the corridor and into the open space of the airlock, the chill of the metal floor sending shivers through me. Mina was right beside me, scanning our surroundings, her expressions flitting between determination and dread. The safety of the shuttle felt like a distant memory as I peered into the abyss of blackness surrounding us. Can you get the engines functioning? I asked, forcing my voice steady despite the knot twisting tighter in my stomach. The powerful hum of the engine rooms echoed in my mind, mingling with memories of pulsating shadows and nameless horrors. I can try, Mina replied, her brow furrowed as panic skated across her features. She moved quickly to the control panel by the door, fingers flying over the buttons as she tried to restore power. I took a deep breath and surveyed the viewport, hoping to catch a glimpse of anything that would indicate our salvation. For a moment, the silence enveloped us, and a feeling of tense anticipation hung in the air. The moment felt impossibly timeless, as if the universe paused between breaths. And then, unexpectedly, I heard it. The whispers, they drifted through the corridor like a gentle breeze, soft yet haunting, causing the hair on the back of my neck to stand on end. They're back, I murmured to Mina, who straightened up and turned to me, wide-eyed. Back? She echoed, scanning the darkness beyond the ship's walls. What do you mean not here, out there? I felt a surge of emotions wrestling within me, a dangerous mix of fear and the unease it left behind. The data we had gathered before everything went haywire played through my mind. Those voices, lingering at the edge of my consciousness, became a cacophony of anxiety. Mina, what if we're not the first? My voice cracked slightly, an underlying sensation crawling all over me. What if this thing, the energy, it's always been here? She looked at me, a momentary flicker of doubt racing through her gaze. We're scientists. We have to believe in logic. Not then. Without warning, the ship lurched violently, rattling bolts and whirring systems into disarray. Get to the control room. I screamed, adrenaline flooding my veins. We need to get out before it reestablishes contact. Mina finished, her voice steadying as urgency propelled her forward. The systems are coming online now, we just need to get to the helm. We sprinted down the narrow corridor towards the dim glow of the control room, each crash and rumble echoing the disturbances within our minds. I could sense it, whatever was lurking beyond the thin walls was becoming increasingly aware and desperate. The moment we entered the control room, the monitors buzzed back to life, displaying fluctuating readings that showed only chaos outside the ship. There. Look. Mina pointed, her voice taut with both fear and excitement. You see that surge? It's the energy source from earlier, but it's stronger. Those resonant pulses throbbed like a heartbeat, seemingly in sync with our own fear. I leaned closer to a monitor, my eyes widening as the readings intensified. It's almost as if it's responding to us, I whispered, a chill creeping down my spine. Exactly, Mina said, tapping frantically at the panel. I think if we can initiate the reverse thrusters. The moment she spoke, alarms flickered to life again, blaring an urgency that felt alarmingly similar to life screaming for survival. The ground beneath us trembled, and the presence of that shadow thickened, returning as an echo on the edge of perception. "Mina!" I shouted, feeling my heart race. "We have to act quickly. Whatever it is, it's not going to let us go that easily." The shadows pressed against the viewports, the figure becoming clearer, its elongated shape twisting and bunching like swirling smoke. It was alive and it was angry. "Almost there," Mina urged, fingers working feverishly at the screen. "Just a bit more power. What do you see?" I pressed, anxiety clawing at my gut. "Hold on. I'll adjust the channels." She focused as the thrum of the ship intensified, shifting energy around us, whispering through the channels like it could sense our fraught state, but my gaze shifted towards the viewport. As the darker shapes swirled, I realized it wasn't just anger. I could feel yearning emanating from that darkness, an unquenchable thirst to be understood, perhaps to be freed. My pulse quickened, and my instincts screamed for me to let it go. "Mina!" I turned to her, drowning in the realization. What if this isn't about escaping? What if it's trying to communicate? She met my gaze, hesitant yet intrigued. "You mean to understand? To seek a response?" "Maybe it's simply lost," I suggested, my heart racing with doubt and defiance. "Like the crew member we saw down there. Maybe it doesn't want us to leave. Maybe it needs us." The view outside flickered with a pulse of light, the dark shape throbbing in tandem with our hearts, and my gut screamed at me to acknowledge the connection. "Mina, please. Let us try to make contact." Her eyes locked onto mine. "If we do this, we may be risking everything." But as she uttered those words, the shape pressed closer to the ship, a whirlwind of darkness twisting with an alien kind of longing. I turned back to the viewport, reaching out as if I could touch it through our technology. A sudden surge of emotions filled the room, and I felt the energy radiating, urging, beckoning, inviting us to see beyond the horror painted onto its features. Before I could second-guess it, I focused, weaving together all the readings, pushing our equipment into harmonizing with that dark pulse outside. "Mina!" I called, steadying my breath. "Recalibrate. Let it connect to us." With a deeper resolve, we worked through the chaos. The oscillating figures outside slowed, forming impressions as they recognized the tremors of our efforts. In that moment, a tenuous understanding echoed an alignment under cosmic pressure. What had once been a source of fear now felt less threatening, more disoriented. With urgency brought forth by connection, light began seeping in through every crevice we created in our attempts to understand the enigma beyond. "What have we unleashed?" I whispered, teeth gritted, as the darkness intertwined and morphed into something beautiful, something almost human. The shapes became clear, revealing emotions lost within them, flickering and pulsing above vast abyssal fears. Was it a desperate plea for help? A call from ships lost to time? Or was it simply a manifestation of our own fears twisted into a yearning for release? I couldn't say yet. As I turned once more to meet Mina's gaze, I felt it, an undeniable sense that whatever lay ahead, we'd delve deeper into a mystery unbound by time. We were standing on the precipice of knowledge, grappling between survival and connection. And as I clutched Mina's hand, we gridlocked, our fates no longer desperate runs for escape, but woven into the threads of understanding that lingered amidst the silence. I closed my eyes against the chaos and uncertainty of it all, surrendering to the echoes that remained unanswered, waiting beyond infinite stars.